Create a portrait of a confident, attractive woman in her early 30s, standing on a porch at night wrapped in a cozy blanket. She has sharp eyes that hint at both pain and strength, soft waves of dark hair, and a subtle, natural beauty. She's gazing into the distance, calm and composed, with a faint smirk that suggests she knows something others don't. The porch is warmly lit from inside, casting a glow around her. She's the survivor of betrayal, but she's standing tall. This is her house now. The vibe is empowering, emotional, and cinematic. The first clue was the noise, kids laughing way too loud and a stampede of footsteps pounding up my porch steps. I opened the door and there they were. My younger brother, Jesse, his wife Lauren, their 3 kids, and my parents, Diane and Martin, all of them standing there uninvited, grinning like they had every right to show up. Jesse adjusted his sunglasses and gave the porch a once-over, like he was scoping out a house he might buy. His oldest, Eli, had already pressed his face to the living room window, smudging it up. Lauren stood a little off to the side, holding their baby swaddled in a lemon-colored blanket, giving me that stiff, fake smile she always wore when she wanted to act like we were on good terms. I'd never shared my new address with them. None of them had ever been to this house before, not once. But I didn't need to ask how they tracked me down. Lauren had her ways of finding things. Diane walked right in like she owned the place. "Well, would you look at this," she said. "Aaron, you've really made something of yourself." It wasn't a compliment, it felt more like she was taking stock. Martin trailed behind, giving his usual silent nod. Jesse came in next, didn't even glance in my direction. The kids fanned out fast, already scoping out which room they wanted. Lauren was the last one in, gently bouncing the baby while locking eyes with me. "It's beautiful," she said. "And wow, so spacious." That's when it hit me, this wasn't some random drop-by. This was orchestrated. Everyone knew, except me, not that it was new behavior. They'd just never pulled it in my space before. Back when we were growing up, the living room was Jesse's turf. He was 3 years younger than me but always louder, always messier, and somehow always let off the hook. One time he chucked the remote at my head and broke it. I got grounded for yelling. Mom said I was being overly dramatic. Dad just sat by the window, pretending he couldn't hear the chaos behind him. By the time I was 11, I'd taken over the laundry. At 13, I was the one making sandwiches in the morning, setting Jesse's backpack by the door so he wouldn't forget it. If I didn't, Mom would lay into me about not pitching in. Jesse turned 8 and got a shiny new gaming console. Me? I got a store-bought cake and a card that said, "Love from all of us," no names, just that. Jesse was the star kid, and they didn't even try to hide it. Diane loved parading him around to neighbors, bragging about her little sports champ. I was just Aaron, quiet, probably into tech or whatever. When I aced my first calculus test, nobody said a word. When Jesse scraped by with AC in biology, we went out for Sundays to celebrate his effort. By 15, he'd already shoved me down the stairs once during what he called playing. I wore long sleeves for a week to hide the bruise on my shoulder. Diane made me swear not to mention it if Grandma asked at Thanksgiving. "We don't need to stir up trouble," she said. "Not when your brother's future is at stake." That's when I stopped asking for anything. No dress for prom, no rides to school meetings. I walked instead. The library stayed open late, and the janitor would let me crash in the corner until I could stand up again. When I was 17, the night I left, I barely took anything with me, just a hoodie, a couple notebooks, and a phone charger. I had $200 stashed in a tin can and a bus schedule I printed out at school. Diane told me not to come back unless I had a real plan. I was still in high school, but the issue wasn't lack of direction, it was that I'd stopped being useful. I crashed on friends' couches for months, still graduated on time. They never showed. No text, no card. I told myself that was for the best. It's easier to heal when the cut's clean. I stopped going back for holidays. No fireworks in July, no Christmas Eve dinners. If they noticed I was gone, they didn't say. Maybe they preferred it that way, one less plate to worry about. Jesse got hitched at 22. I didn't get an invite, I saw the photos online. Lauren and Lace, smiling like she'd won the lottery. Jessie next to her, arms slung around her waist, looking like Mr. Perfect. Their first kid came a year later, the second right after. By then, they'd already moved back in with my parents, said it made childcare easier. Diane was obsessed with them, constantly posting pictures every week like they were some perfect little tribe. 3 generations under one roof. Not a single one of those photos included me. From then on, I became exactly who they whispered about when I wasn't around, the one who left, the one who didn't get what family meant, the one who made her own mess and should lie in it. And for years, I did, but by that point, it wasn't the bed that had me worried, it was the ground it sat on. When spring hit in 2020, the whole world shut down, and right along with it, so did my lease. I lost my job almost immediately. I'd been working contract QA for a supply chain tech company. No warning, no severance, just a cold auto-generated email and one last check that didn't even cover rent. My roommate hung on for another couple of weeks before packing up and heading back to her parents' place in Michigan. That wasn't an option for me. The condo we'd been splitting was way out of my range alone. I started selling off my stuff, furniture, my dual monitors, even this floor-length mirror I loved, just to scrape together enough for that final month. After that, I stopped sleeping indoors. There just wasn't anything left to hang on to. What I did still have was my truck. An old, beat-up silver Ford that had taken more hits than a football player. And a camper I'd bought used 3 years earlier, paid $1,200 in cash and still had the handwritten receipt. I'd told myself I might use it for a weekend getaway one day, but I never did. Instead, I bolted it down to the truck bed, cleaned it out best I could, and made it barely livable. A foam mattress, a mini fridge, and one plastic bin full of clothes. That first night, I parked behind a strip mall. The streetlights buzzed and flickered overhead, and sometime after midnight, a group of teens rolled by on skateboards. One of them tossed an empty soda can at my tailgate. I didn't sleep, just laid there in the dark, hands pressed against the inside walls, listening hard for footsteps. The next morning, I swallowed my pride and called my parents. Told them everything, lost my job, my place was gone, and I just needed somewhere to park for a while. Diane didn't even hesitate. "Yeah, no, that's not going to work," she said. "The kids are all here. It's already too tight." Then Jesse took the phone. "If you want to park in the driveway," he said, "you'll have to pay rent." And the amount he named? It was nearly double what a local RV lot would have charged. I didn't argue. Just hung up. After that, I rotated between parking lots, grocery store corners, abandoned office parks, once even a quiet street near the river. I'd charge my batteries using outlets behind laundromats or switch to solar when the sun cooperated. I showered at the gym when I could, and when I couldn't, I made do with the sink at a 24-hour gas station. I forwarded my mail to a friend's apartment. Ate cold canned soup more times than I'd like to admit. One night in July, the mini fridge died in the heat and spoiled every scrap of food I had. When I finally landed a warehouse job one town over, I volunteered for the night shift. No commute, I just stayed parked out back. The owner looked the other way. "You show up when you're supposed to," he told me. That's already better than most. He let me use a water spigot and an outlet near the backup generator. Even cleared out a little space so I could detach the camper and drive the truck during the day. It wasn't comfort, but it was solid. And after the kind of year I'd had, that meant everything. 2 winters passed like that. I never told my family where I was. Didn't check in. Didn't ask for anything. And they didn't either. About 3 weeks after I posted a photo of my new place, just the front steps and my hand holding the keys, I finally let myself exhale. No caption, just one word, home. I didn't give out the address, but one evening, just as I finished setting up the camper in the backyard, part habit, part backup plan, I heard knocking. Then again. And then, without so much as a pause, the front door opened. They walked in like they were touring a model home on a Sunday afternoon. Diane led the charge, naturally, holding out a Tupperware container and announcing it was for me. Lauren came in next, baby in tow, Glancing around the kitchen like she was already deciding where to hang her family portraits, Jesse trailed behind them, poking at the ceilings, commenting on the baseboards like he was already considering renovations. The kids blew past him, full speed, like the place was some kind of theme park. Tom stayed by the door, clutching his coat like he hadn't decided if they were actually staying or just dropping in. "This is really beautiful, Raina," Diane said, giving the place a slow once-over. "You did well for someone who's been on her own." She said it like a compliment, but it felt more like an audit. I didn't bother replying. I didn't have to. Lauren was already gliding through the place like she was leading a walkthrough, her voice all syrupy. 3 bedrooms? That's generous. Honestly, it's bigger than I expected. Almost too much for one person, you know? Jesse didn't say much, but his eyes were scanning everything, like he was sizing it up for future use. "This is closer to my job than I realized," he mumbled, more to himself than to me. I leaned against the hallway wall and just watched them. My space. My floors, even if they still creaked. My empty walls I hadn't gotten around to decorating. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. They never asked to see the house. Never asked if they could come in. They just acted like they already belonged. Eventually, Jesse turned and gave me this weird, easy smile. "Got a sec?" Like clockwork, the rest of them made themselves scarce, Diane calling the kids outside, Lauren humming to the baby while heading toward the porch. Tom met my eyes once, then looked away. I followed Jesse into the kitchen. He leaned back against the counter, acting like it was his already. "This place, it's really something," he said. "But you know it's more than you need, right?" He paused, gave me a glance, then kept going. "I mean, you've still got the camper, and you're used to living light. We've got the baby, and another one coming. Plus, this is, 15 minutes from my office?" He waited, but I didn't say a word. "So we were thinking, maybe Lauren and I, and the kids, we could stay here for a bit. Just till we're back on our feet, you know? You could move the camper back out in the yard like before." He smiled, like it was already settled. Like I'd be unreasonable to say no, and I just stood there, quiet, because a part of me had always known they'd show up eventually. I just didn't think they'd be this bold. After that kitchen conversation, I didn't hear a word from them for 3 full days. They left that night with a few vague goodbyes and too many looks that lingered too long. Then came Friday. I pulled into my driveway a little after 6, takeout on the passenger seat, house key already in my hand, and that's when I saw the moving truck. Backed right up to the porch. Jesse's van parked right beside it. The front door? Wide open. Cardboard boxes piled in the entryway. Toys scattered across the floor. The TV was blasting some cartoon so loud I could hear it from the curb. Jesse walked out carrying a lamp, didn't even flinch when he saw me, just gave this casual nod, like I was the one showing up late. Lauren popped up behind him, baby on her hip, and flashed a big bright smile. "It's happening," she said like it was great news. "We're so grateful you're letting us stay." Before I could get a word out, she turned and disappeared into the living room like this had all been discussed and confirmed. I didn't follow them in. I walked right back to my truck, locked the doors, and called the police. As the phone rang, I cracked the window just enough to get some air. That's when Lauren walked up and tapped on the glass, twice, with her fingernail. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "Just let it happen. It's better for the kids." Then she tilted her head and added, even quieter, "Your mom said it was fine. And you always listen to her, don't you?" The 911 dispatcher came on the line. I gave them my name, the address, and told them my home was being taken without permission. Officers arrived a few minutes later. Lauren tried to pour on the charm. Jesse stayed inside pretending to fiddle with crib parts like he hadn't drilled out my lock and walked in like he owned the place. I walked the officers through everything, showed my ID, the deed, even pointed out the lock cylinder that had been drilled and dumped on the porch like trash. The drill was still plugged in, sitting on an orange extension cord. The officers knocked. Jesse opened the door, holding up a stack of papers. "It's a lease," he said.